More bad news coming out of the SLV. We have Alamosa. Alamosa, Colorado. This is Casilla Carriage, updated 5 hours ago, January 10th, 2023. So it was posted today at 8:18 a.m. Just a couple paragraphs here. Alamosa, Colorado, KKTV. One person was killed in a shooting in southern Colorado around 8 p.m. Monday. The Alamosa Police Department responded to W 6th Street, West 6th Street for a disturbance. Possible shots fired. Officers found a man who had been shot and unresponsive, and he died on scene. He died on scene, or he was already dead on scene. Officers on scene got information about a possible suspect. The Colorado State Patrol later found a man believed to have been involved. The victim and suspect have not been publicly identified. They're going to update this article as they learn more. So what the fuck? In the last goddamn 5 to 6 years, you've had 20 to 30 fucking killings. What the fuck is going on? What the fuck is going on? A bunch of drug warfare, right? A bunch of gang drug warfare. One big thing about Alamosa that frustrates me being a Coloradan is that they haven't legalized marijuana. If marijuana was legalized, then people could buy their marijuana straight from the dispensary. I remember living in Kentucky, and my one vice is marijuana. And yet, because, to get some marijuana, it's illegal, so you have to go into the underworld. So I love being in Colorado because I could buy my marijuana without having to get into the fucking heroin and the meth heads and the fucking criminal fucking gangbanging piles of shit. Those arrested are 2 18-year-olds and 3 17-year-olds. Another thing is that one guy was protesting, and he tried to hit him with a truck. Can we protest? Can we, when you have these people that are being shot and shit, when you like somebody to just turn in a petition? When you like to have people to peacefully assemble? We have the right to speak, the right to press. How about religion? Can we have a prayer fucking circle? Didn't that one guy with just a vigil? He had a candlelight vigil just sitting on a fucking bench. Cop had a problem with that too. Some people got real fucking problems. Cops just go around fucking with everybody, not knowing who the hell is the bad people and the good people. And to be honest, they're probably, they're human, so they're not going to want to go into danger. It's probably easier. They got a quota. They got to bully the people that turn the other cheek. They have to fuck over all the Jesus Christ. And, of course, Pontius Pilate is going to rubber stamp any and everything that those authoritarian fascist sons of bitches. One person was killed in a shooting in southern Colorado, 8 p.m. on Monday. 8 p.m. on Monday. So today is Tuesday. This was posted the day after, so this happened last night. So, God, I have a lot of things to think about this. I got a 10-point procedure. Let's say just a couple comments, right? People are sick of the fucking criminal motherfuckers. If you're a lawful person and you have to deal with this stupid shit, and you got to deal with the stupid shit police, it'd be nice if Alamosa would legalize marijuana so the potheads could just say we only do pot and fuck all the rest of the goddamn drugs out there. Alamosa's 10 years behind fucking Colorado. Alamosa is trying to hold on to the fucking 1850s. I wouldn't doubt if there's a bunch of Confederate fucking piles of shit up there too. Gotta defend the 1850s slave-owning piles of shit, right, you Confederate dumb motherfuckers? If you believe in Nazis or Confederates, do you believe in any fucking thing? Do you have any intelligence, you white supremacist pilot? You're an evil motherfucker and you heard evil thoughts and now so you don't have any virtues, you don't have any morals, you're not reading the fucking laws and making sure you're goddamn compliant with the laws. So, it's frustrating that we have to live in a corrupt fucking system. The cops, if you call the cops, they don't fucking do a goddamn fucking thing. But they'll be the first motherfuckers to give you a ticket for driving, 5 miles over the speed limit and not having a fucking seatbelt on. Or having a candlelight vigil. Or if you have a little crystal. Isn't that what Christian Glass died of? He had a little crystal. Them cops are making fun. The female cops, the female white cops was making fun of him. You little hippie. What are you, little hippie boy? Oh, what are you, all peaceful and stuff? You all about love and peace and freedom? That's the people that the cops think are the fucking danger. That's the people that the cops need to execute. Put capital punishment upon them. The state of Colorado can't do capital punishment, but your, gunned up fucking cops can do it. All you liberals against guns, how come you're okay with these men having guns? So, now that I've criticized the police a little bit, let's criticize the fucking criminals, right? If I have to, between the criminals and the cops, I'm at least allowed to criticize the police, right? But the damn criminals, right? Those motherfuckers, they'll just hurt anybody and everybody, not giving a shit about anybody. That Andre Psycho-Baroges, it looked like there was no rhyme or reason. Anybody he came across and just he yelled at and they didn't obey him, now he's hurting them. So what do we got? A bunch of gangs? Bunch of gangland in motherfucking Alamosa and Monte Vista and Del Norte? How come these cities are like known to be the worst cities in all of Colorado? Is it because of the fucking gangland? I mean, that damn Andre Psycho-Baroges, what gang was he a part of? He was part of some gang. You got MS-13, you got Bloods, you got Crips, you got, let's see, MS-13, Cineola, Bloods, Crips, Cineola, MS-13. Ultimately, if you join a criminal, get the Hells Angels, if you join a criminal gang, you have no morals, you're not reading the laws, you're just a piece of shit. Now, I could understand why some disaffected males would want to join a gang if you don't have a family, if you don't have brotherhood, and you being a good American citizen, you got a bunch of cops saying you're not allowed to defend yourself. But if you join a gang, you can defend yourself, and you'll have a brotherhood, and you'll have a family. Now, you'll get a lot of other shit that goes with it. I think if you chose evil, between evil and good, you've chosen evil, then you fucked up. But how come the police didn't reach out? I mean, how many teachers and police officers and judges and clerks, how many people are getting paid by the system? How many bankers? They're getting paid by the system to tell you to shut up and sit down while they get the money and they get the power. How many of these, guys actually had a chance? You have a lot of disaffected males that's out there. So I think it's gangs, right? When I think of it's an 18-year-old, 2 18-year-olds, and 3 17-year-olds, they will all face murder charges, which is, fine and dandy, but that's, they're 17. They were 17. So that means they were somebody's child, and they weren't even raised up to adulthood. They fell into, some gangland shit. Why are the fucking criminal gangs allowed to fucking roam around and do as the hell as they goddamn fucking please? And then, what gangs are they? If they're let's say they're the Cineola. Okay, so now they go to jail where the bunch of Cineola are at. They'll do their 5 years, right? They terrorize the neighborhood. They terrorize it for years. And now they're going to go to jail. The Cineola's right there. So shit, you join the Cineola. You got a family and a brotherhood in the jail, outside of jail. You got a support system everywhere you look. You got Cineola, they're speaking your language, right? That's how they're able to make inroads. They're able to speak Spanish. So you got the Cineola that's saying, oh, hey, you young people out there. No, the cops they don't give a shit about caucuses. They don't care about democracy. No, you can't rightfully petition or protest or peacefully assemble. They're authoritarian Nazi motherfuckers. They'll get pissed off if you just make eye contact with them. And that's another thing. The police are the examples. So when the police are just being a bunch of thugging motherfuckers, and then which of those cops are part of the gangs too? Is the Cineola, have they already, in California, had, a lot of the gangs were already part of the police force. So, and then also, there's all these churches, all these schools out here, all these mentors and shit, and yet no fucking morality, no goddamn ethics. You think he read the laws? That they changed the laws on chicken eggs or something. You can't have chickens laying eggs in a cage or something. You think these assholes even fucking gave a shit what the fuck Denver passed? People are like, oh, pass laws against the guns. Yeah, they'll read the laws and they're like, you know what? They'll just come to their own, they'll somehow get on the goddamn LexisNexis and motherfucking probably while they're registering to vote too, paying their taxes, registering to vote, paying for their permits. And to tie it in with me, they'll get a preliminary hearing. They'll get a preliminary hearing if they get the public pretender. Because at least that office knows, for sure that they get a preliminary hearing. The only way you get a preliminary hearing, there's 6 classes of felonies. But if you do a felony that's only a 4 or 5 or a 6, you don't get a preliminary hearing, with some exceptions. A lot of exceptions. Frankly, I think every person charged with a felony gets a preliminary hearing. You get a preliminary hearing or you get a grand jury, you can't just have one piece of shit just fucking make up shit. Well, I kidnapped Anne Frank and I charged her with being what? A black communist Jew? You want me to be? I'll be your black communist Jew. You need a black communist Jew to oppress and feel better than? I'll be your Huckleberry. So, all these, they'll face murder charges, and then the 17-year-olds, the 18-year-olds will be charged as adults, and we'll be able to talk about them, and until the 17-year-olds, they'll have to have a transfer hearing, another transfer hearing, but that's just transferring their, underagedness to adultness or something. So transfer this juvenile case to adult case. You're big enough to go around with the guns, you're big enough around to go shoot people. And then, who would have wanted these people to have maybe, fired a warning shot or two? Fire 3 warning shots up in the air. Pow, pow, pow. Could that have stopped it? Could there still be a person that's alive today if there was a warning shot or two? And I'm supposed to believe that a police officer never shot a warning shot or two? And that wasn't the first time I shot warning shots either. But that was the first time that one of the motherfuckers that was fucking with me called the law about it. The other ones were like, well, we were messing with dudes, so yeah. So the other part that I want to make, that we should have a common law. I believe that the truth is objective. You got the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And what a wrangled web we weave when we practice to deceive. We need to be strong and honest. Obey the law, but if somebody messes with you, you have to stand up for yourself. Be in an army of one, be all that you can be. So I got quotes here. The great thing about the truth is that you don't have to remember anything. The truth always remains the truth. There's no your truth or my truth. Maybe your perception of what had happened. But ultimately, look at the videotape. That person moved that way and did that thing. The videotape is clear cut. Well, what's your videotape say? Well, my videotape says something completely different. No, it doesn't. It'll say it from a different perspective. But each and every videotape adds to the total objective truth. So if you got honest people, as long as you have honest people, honest actors, then their truths should add to the overall objective truth. There's only one truth. There's only one objective truth, and the truth is immovable. And frankly, if you don't believe in the truth, then what do you represent? So I got 50 common laws here for all Coloradans. If we were all on the same page, wouldn't that be good? If we were all on the same page? Here's a 10-step criminal procedure for the SLV 12th Judicial District, Colorado. So you can point your filthy finger at me and say, hey, firing warning shots is the biggest crime ever in the world. If I point my finger at you and I say, not only did you, commit a felony, A, B, and C, and then I have the evidence, then they have to go through the same criminal procedure that I had to go through. I fired a couple warning shots. The jury trial is going to be coming up here shortly. Here's the 10-step criminal procedure for the SLV, the way I understand it. And the way that Michael Gonzalez understands it, except for the preliminary hearing. We disagree on we split the difference. He thinks only the top 3 felonies, and if you're in custody, do you get a preliminary hearing? I think anybody charged with a felony gets a preliminary hearing. But here's a 10-step criminal procedure for the SLV, 12th Judicial District, Colorado. The arrest summons is the very beginning. The arrest summons, and then the bail bond hearing, and then the advisement of the charges, the preliminary hearing, dispositional hearing, arraignment, motions hearing, pretrial readiness conference, jury trial, and then sentencing. Now, at some point, there's the filing of the information. So maybe we could just put that with the arrest/summons, because once the DA files the information, that's when the whole process actually begins. But you can initiate the process if you're a judge or a cop by issuing an arrest or a summons. So if you're if you know the person's a respectable person who committed a crime or whatever, but you know that they'll show up for court, you're supposed to err on the side of a summons in lieu of an arrest. But that's the first step, arrest or summons. And then at some point in time, the filing of the information is put into it. So I wonder if maybe the filing of the information, they put it in between the dispositional hearing or some shit. But the judge and the cops can initiate the criminal justice procedure, but it doesn't get an official stamp of approval until the DA files the information upon the information that they got from you. And to be able to get an arrest warrant or a summons, the judge is going to have to hear you out and see what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. So the first step is arrest or summons. And apparently somebody has been arrested. A suspect has been arrested, or maybe 5 of them. Now, all 5 of those alleged murderers, at least one's a murderer, right? One pulled the trigger definitely because you got a dead person. So you got one murderer that they've arrested, but then you also have aiding and abetting. You have aiding and abetting. There's something accessory to the crime. So you have a bunch of accessories. You got the criminal culprit, the murderer. Maybe all of them are murderers in a firing line squad, right? They all fire at the same time. But something just tells me 1 or 2 shot the guy. The other ones were accessories. Maybe after the fact, I don't know. But all 5 of those guys, and I'm assuming they're male, there could be a female, people, they're going to get a bail bond hearing. And whether they get bonded out or not, maybe they'll get $1 million bail bond. I think the bail system actually works. It makes sense. It's logical. I think liberals have mistaken to actually look at the bail bond. You could probably reform bail somehow to make it better. Quit criminalizing the poor. Quit criminalizing the Anne Franks. Quit criminalizing the Frederick Douglasses. What, Frederick? You were getting abused. And I can't stand up to the slave master, so I'm going to have to abuse you too. Sorry. Arrest, summons, bail bond hearing, advisement of charges, preliminary hearing, dispositional hearing, arraignment. Now, arraignment is guilty or not guilty. That's when you state a plea. And there's a whole bunch of, like, legalese and reasons why you're not supposed to say this or say that. There's guilty and not guilty. There's also nolo contendere, an Alford plea too. So actually you got 3 options. But basically, nolo contendere is saying, guilty, or you'll take that there's enough evidence or something that's like guilty but not guilty, but it kind of lets the court, punish you without you outright saying that, you were an awful person. Advisement of charges, preliminary hearing. Preliminary hearing is a mini trial. The reason why I was denied a preliminary hearing, because I had 5 cops who wrote their names down as witnesses. They didn't witness anything. It was just me and Mr. KC. Just me and this other guy. So it's just going to be between his perception and my perception. And there's only one truth. There's only one truth. So preliminary hearing is like a mini hearing. And it makes sense if you're the judge and you get, all these cases coming in to ask a couple questions. Who are you? Who are you? What is this all about? In public schools, being a straight A student, I wasn't allowed to defend myself. Being a Christian, I'm not allowed to defend myself. Being a child abuser's household, I'm not allowed to defend myself. But that comes from the state of nature. It's also protected under Colorado law. Of course you have a right to protect yourself. What kind of piece of shit would tell another person that they don't? Well, preliminary hearing is a mini trial. So it's just basically, who are you? What is you? What's going on? What's the evidence that we have? It's the way for the judge to ask what's going on. He's allowed to ask what's going on instead of just, rubber stamping whatever person is arrested. It would be easy as hell to arrest an Anne Frank, but they could never arrest Adolf Hitler. How many Anne Franks were arrested? The Nazis are not goddamn fucking impressive because they arrested Anne Frank and her mother and her sister. They would be impressive if they would have arrested the bad people, the bullies. Now that would be impressive. You arrested people that would fight back? You arrested other bullies? So the preliminary hearing is like a mini trial. It's actually supposed to err on the side of the defendant can ask questions, but the judge can err on the side of the prosecution. Whatever is best in the light of the prosecution or some shit. So while the preliminary hearing, you could say that's good for the defendant because he could ask, the arresting officers and the witnesses, and they get to ask, what evidence do you have? Do you have photos? You got an article? Do you have a video camera? Do you have an eyewitness testimony? Do you have any evidence whatsoever that, these charges has happened? And that way the judge can get a feel for the case. Now, before the preliminary hearing, there's the bail bond hearing, whether or not the person's going to get bailed out. So that's going to be the first step. Since they've already been arrested, is their bail bond hearing. And then there's going to be the advisement of charges. A lot of time lawyers will it's just kind of a perfunctory thing, but because you have a nice, crystal clear criminal procedure, you point at me, I have to go through all these 10 steps. But if I point at you and I have, evidence of you committing a crime, you got to go through the same exact 10 steps. You think you're allowed to? You're not. So the 5 people that killed the guy is going to go to a bail bond hearing, probably get a huge bail, and if they got $1 million, they'll be able to walk around for free. Or not for free, they'll be able to walk around free, as in they have political freedom somewhat. But, if they jaywalk or do a small tiny thing, they're right back in jail. But the bail bond hearing, $1 million, they probably won't be able to get out, so they'll have to be behind bars until the trial happens. And we should push for a jury trial. How many murders? 20 murders in the last 5 to 6 years. 20 murders. And we only know about the shooting and whatever the article of the newspaper tells us, and then all the cops and the judges and the clerks, they know all the rest of it. And maybe they'll tell us later on about what's going on. But advisement of charges is just telling them what you've been charged with. It's also habeas corpus. You can't just capture somebody without telling them what their charges are. That one blind guy said you have to have an articulated reasonable suspicion. You think there's probable cause that I committed a crime? Okay, articulate it. Articulate what do you think is okay, you thought that this was a gun. It's not a gun. You see that it's not a gun. So you've done your investigation. You just want to harass me because you're a fucking tyrant, right? And that's what he said. You're just being a tyrant. And then they said, yep. And then he asked that other fucking guy, did you see how that guy didn't even think about it? The woman said it, and I'm just going to back whatever the woman says because I don't have any balls, I don't know right from wrong. She started harassing you, and that's what we do. We're a criminal gangland out here. She starts harassing you, then I start harassing you. Blind man, how dare you go to jury duty, blind man? How dare you have a walking stick, blind man? And then after the preliminary hearing is the dispositional hearing, which is supposed to be in good faith. The DA sits down with the defendant or the defendant's lawyer and say, okay, what are we doing? Where are we situated right now? Are we going to do a plea bargain? Is it you're completely innocent and you want me to... what's going on? And then after the dispositional hearing, then is the arraignment. That's step 6. So by the time you say guilty or not guilty, you've already gone through 6 of your steps. And you have to request for a preliminary hearing. If you don't outright request it, there's like some loophole that says, well, you waived it. You said guilty or not guilty, so you waived your preliminary hearing thing. I didn't waive anything. I didn't know about any of this stuff. And what's good for the goose is good for the gander. The reason why I love procedure and process is because let's assume that the system most of the time gets it right. Let's assume these 5 guys are involved in the damn thing, and they all should be punished. But what if one of them wasn't? What if one of them is, going to be the one that will tell you the whole thing so he'll get the deal to get cut? But essentially, he was trying to do right, trying to do good. He's just off to the side. They swooped him in. And now he's, stuck with this, running around with this fucking crew. Assume he's innocent. If one of those 5 people are innocent, they should be able to go through this 10-step procedure and be exonerated. You have to assume that there's going to be a handful of the accused or the arrested or the people that the cops point out. There's going to be a handful, at least I heard 6%. That's going to be innocent, not guilty. And so, good thing you had the 10-step criminal procedure. I also like how it's perfectly 10 steps. I love this 10-step criminal procedure so much. After the arraignment, you got the motions hearing, and that's where you can just file all your motions, essentially. All your pre-trial motions. And then there's a pre-trial readiness conference, which is different than the motions. The motions hearing is kind of like, is there other, pre-trial matters? the pretrial readiness conference is like, okay, we're definitely going to go to trial, and we didn't need to just make sure you got the witnesses and this and that. Have we figured out most of the stuff? It's basically, let's just get ready for trial. And then jury trial is the jury trial, right? The presentation of evidence. One side presents their side, the other one presents their side. If there's a guilty verdict, then it goes to sentencing, and then that's the 10th step, sentencing. So I love that it's nice, crisp, 10-step criminal procedure for you, for me, for the cops, for the judges, for the bankers, for the merchants, for any poor peasant, for everybody. Everybody's got to follow the law. Here's a criminal procedure for every single Colorado citizen. So you got 5 of those accused. And there's been way too many fucking killings and murders. Way too fucking many. Part of me wants to... Thou shalt not murder, so even though you're supposed to presume innocence until proven guilty, I kind of take the stance of common sense, and I guess it's kind of from the system's side. But they get a honest hearing, and if you want a good conviction, you give them a good lawyer. You tell them all the rights that they have, give them their victims' rights, whatever. And you make sure they get all 10 steps of the process. If they get all 10 steps of the process, they have a good lawyer. When the conviction comes down, whether it's a bench trial or a jury trial, it's a good conviction. He had a good lawyer. He knew all of his rights. He presented all of his arguments and all the evidence and everything, all the witnesses that they had. He presented the best case that he could, and the jury says that he was guilty. And then there's sentencing. So I hope that my common victims' rights and my 8 common rules of evidence and my 30 criminal laws, which I guess I could rattle them off real quick. Yeah. I hope they're as, tight and good as the 10-step criminal procedure. There's 50 common laws. So here's 50 common laws for all of Colorado. Here's common criminal laws, okay? I got some victims' rights. Rights are what you're allowed to do. Laws are what you're not allowed to do. Don't rape. Don't murder. Don't pedophile. Don't rob. Don't hit. Don't bear false witness against thy neighbor. Don't abuse. Don't torture. Don't arson. Don't kidnap. Don't enslave. Now that's Johnny's 11 commandments. That's Johnny law. Do you disagree with any of those? If so, please let me know which one of those do you disagree with. Now here's a couple more. Here's 4 class 1 felonies. So this Colorado just really hates treason. You can't abuse a child under 12 to death. That's a class 1 felony, which means that's automatic life. Class 1 felony is automatic life. Don't assault anybody during escape. If you try to run away, there's actually holding a person hostage. Assault is less than a hostage, and I think the hostage, whatever. Don't assault anybody during escape. So if you're in prison and you go to escape, you can't hit anybody, and you also can't take a hostage. But most importantly, don't assault anybody, because that's a class 1 felony. I want to say the hostage is a class 2 felony. Don't treason against Colorado or America, neither one of our republics or the constitutions. You can't. Don't abuse a child under 12 to death. That's 186401. Don't murder a firefighter or an EMS worker or a cop. Thou shalt not murder, but if you murder a firefighter, EMS worker, or a cop, automatically life in prison. Now, here's 11 class 2 felonies in Colorado. No holding hostages while escaping. Class 2 felony. So assault is not worse than holding a hostage. I think holding a hostage is worse. They probably should switch those. Also, even though you might have agreed with Johnny Law, don't rape sounds obvious, right? Well, actually it says don't sexually assault in Colorado. I think we should have a don't rape law, not just don't sexually assault. If someone says there was a sexual assault, that's different than someone saying they raped that person. Don't murder a firefighter, EMS worker, or a cop. Okay, 11 class 2 felonies. I'm not going to be able to get through all this. I'll just read until we get to the 30-minute mark. No holding hostages while escaping. No aiding and escape. No pandering of a child. No theft. No unlawful manufacture of a financial transaction device. No unlawful termination of pregnancy. No sexual assault. no criminal mischief, no human trafficking for labor, no human trafficking for sex, no escaping. 3 more laws, no auto theft, no disrupting a lawful assembly, 18.9.108. You have a right to arrest. All citizens and civilians have the right to arrest. If you witness a crime, you get to arrest them. No perjury. Perjury is a class 4 felony.